simple and plain. This ain't no game, you know what I'm saying? What? Yep, yep. Here we go. Oh, yeah.
Hello, I'm Tommy Meeks, and I would like to welcome you to another edition of It's Time for a Change. I tell you, I meet people from all over the place, but I got a new neighbor that moved in upstairs from me, and I got to talking to him. Well, I'll let him introduce himself and his guest. Obi
Wazoda.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Nelson
Wume.
Wume. You guys are from Nigeria, right?
Yes.
Originally, yep.
You didn't know each other over there, did you?
Not at all. We're
Big country, right?
Millions of
country.
people.
Millions of people.
Very populated.
That's true. But you landed here in Rockford, Illinois. You're both in our School of Medicine.
Yes.
Yes,
You're
sir.
going to be doctors, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's why I want to have you on the show. I met OB a while back. We talked, seemed like a great neighbor. And when I found out he wanted to be a doctor, then he told me about you, Nelson. I said, you guys got to come on my show. And Nelson, tell me a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in the States, and what motivated you to want to be a doctor.
Sure, no problem. Well, I was born in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
Both of my parents came to the States for college,
Okay.
Pharmacy school, and I didn't really think about medicine through most of my life. I thought you had to want to be a doctor from when you were, very young. I took a different path. I was a swimmer. I swam through a little college. I went to Bradley, where I transferred from Penn State to Bradley, where I majored in computer science. Okay. And so I worked as a software developer in Chicago for many years.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. And then just dealing with family, various family members. They got sick, my mother particularly, and she developed cancer. And I just got more involved in the process of taking her to chemo and things like that. And just spending more time in the hospital around the various physicians, I realized that that's something that not only could I see myself doing, that I thought that was one of the better ways I could make a change and help a lot of people. So
that's a great story.
Yeah.
Nelson, how did you end up that way?
So mine actually a bit different from Obi's. I've been surrounded by medicine for most of my life. I was born in Nigeria. There, my dad was a doctor, mom was a nurse. So from the get-go, it was like, I kind of fell into place. Yeah, actually in our compound, in a little gated, not quite gated, but in our village in Nigeria, there's an area of houses with a hospital in it. My dad was a co-owner there, and my mom worked there. So every day, you'd see just throngs of people lined up waiting for treatment every morning, and they would leave just amazed, and they would bring gifts. My dad and mom all the time, and so that's what I saw on a daily basis. So of course it was natural for me to want to go into that.
Right.
And then moved to the U.S. when I was 7. Moved to the south side of Chicago. Went through there. Went to high school in the south suburb of Chicago, and went to undergrad at Wash U in St. Louis. From there, just fostered my love for medicine. Did a lot of volunteering, a lot of coursework around medicine, and here I am a few years later. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I'm blown away, and I'm totally impressed. You guys are not the only, African doctors in this country, but one thing I noticed, and I noticed this for myself, and I'm not saying I'm that smart either, but I know when I decided to apply myself in education, things got a lot easier for me. When I didn't put the work in, things were really hard for me. How often do you guys, as from children to grown men like you are, how much do you focus on your education? How much time do you put into that?
Do you want to take that first? Or?
Yeah, it's our career at this point.
Yeah,
We're career
definitely.
students, but it wasn't always, it just doesn't come natural, It's, there are many factors to it. You have to have the right support, either from your parents or from the community, and then eventually you have to pick that up and internalize that motivation, and then lead yourself along. But yeah, in terms of how often I think about learning and stuff like that, it's as of now, like I said, it's a career. It's an investment in my future right now. And every day, most of the day is either spent actively learning, planning, or taking a break from that. But I'd say it's mostly it's my life at this point.
Yeah, I would, to piggyback off that, I agree with everything Nelson said. I think that, I think at this point it's gotten a little easier, but it definitely is something that I liken it to like a sport. Well, education is not something that you're just born. Well, maybe some people are born with it, but myself, I wasn't born with it. I've had to work. I've had to work and fight, and really make adjustments along the way, and just like you said, incremental progress. Do a little every day, work your hardest, and it helps being surrounded by people that can motivate you, and you could feed off of their energy and things like that. But it's definitely a lifelong. It's a lifelong process. Medicine is not like a normal career where you just, you punch a clock and you go home. It's one of those careers where you have to be constantly learning, because medicine, similar to technology, it's always changing. Rules are, what was a rule yesterday is not a rule tomorrow. We come up with new techniques, new medicines, and things like that. So you just have to constantly really be pushing yourself to kind of, stay on top of the current protocols and things like that.
Now, is there a certain field of medicine you're focusing on right now, or you just got to get rid of the basics and then you can target? I mean, I don't know how it works, but.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about that, then you can pick it up. So the way it kind of works is medicine is like, it's almost like undergraduate education in that you go to medical school for 4 years and they teach you a lot of the basics. They teach you general medicine. And then after those 4 years, you kind of decide what it is you want to do, and you take a couple of exams, and then you apply for your specialty training, if you will, where you spend the time in the hospital and you really learn medicine. Right now it's more mainly in the classroom for both of us right now. I don't know if you want to piggyback on that.
Yeah, that was a great explanation. So the first 2 years of med school are what's called you do your basic sciences. The first year you do your physiology, your anatomy, a lot of the book work. Second year you do book work too, but you focus on the diseases, the pathologies, the bad things that can happen. That you built off of what you learned the first year. Then your third and fourth years, you are actually in the hospitals more often, and that's usually when you get a better idea of what you might want to go into. But as of now, I'm keeping my options open. It's pretty good. It's a good piece of advice that we've received. You should keep your options open for as long as possible, or until you have that that calling that you've sought out. But yeah, I want to wait until I get into the clinics and really see what tugs at my heartstrings to decide what I want to go into.
Now, I got to ask you this. I work with a good friend of mine. His name is Bobby Williams. He worked with me at FedEx. Little short white guy, just as nice as you want to be. He works in the mailroom at School of Medicine. Have you guys ever ran into him?
Bobby Phillips, no.
Bobby Williams.
Sorry. Bobby Williams.
Get out there, check that mailroom.
Yeah, I'll have to look for him.
One of the greatest human beings.
I don't think I have.
I'll
look out for him.
Well, he gets all the mail in, and he goes around, and he retired from FedEx, and I did too. We're good friends. He always talking about School of Medicine.
Oh, okay.
So
awesome.
I had to tell him I ran into you guys.
Oh yeah, please do.
But it's a pretty big place over there, I imagine. It's pretty nice size.
It is. There's actually a different colleges. So there's a College of Medicine there. There's a College of Pharmacy there. There's a nursing program there, and there's a graduate program there as well. Yeah, it's actually very large. It's actually increased in size this year. Yeah.
Now I know my daughter. I had 5 daughters and 2 sons. One of my sons passed away.
I'm sorry.
And another one of my youngest daughter passed away. And all that happened in the last 7 years is pure hell. But I got one daughter that's a nurse.
Oh.
And I always tell people this story. One of my other daughters, they're all good looking. They're not just because they're mine. They're all good looking girls.
Of course not.
But they used to, the other ones used to be watching BET and dancing, and they want to see a movie. And the one that's a nurse, she just had books all along her wall, and that's all she did read. And I could ask her any question. She was able to answer. And what I'm saying is, it paid off for her. She got a great career, started out making over $30-some an hour, and I thought that was pretty good, because her father never got that far. But it's hard work, and you put effort into it, and then there's a payoff at the end.
I definitely think that it's medicine is one of those fields where there's a certain there has to be a level of delayed gratification. Because what you trade in terms of nights of partying and nights of going out with your friends, hopefully I like to think you'll make it up on the back end when you're in positions where you can really alter the course of people's lives and people's disease processes and things like that. So
now you you were born in America. You came here at
Nigeria.
age 7.
Yeah.
People look at you, they look at you like, just some more African American guys. But you know, you were born here. What do you think? Some of our people that, you know, my ancestors came here from Africa. I don't have a clue to who they are, what part of the region we came from. I imagine with DNA, we could probably find out.
Exactly
you know,
right,
if maybe we long distance cousins
We could
at
be.
some point.
Possibly.
You never know.
Yeah.
But you've been here long enough to see some of the things going on in our city, in Chicago. I don't know if you live on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah, I did
but,
at one point.
you know, it's pretty bad.
It is.
And I've always felt that we can do better than this. We can do better than this in Rockford. I'm talking about African American people.
Yeah.
We could do better in Chicago. You guys have any thoughts of what could uplift our communities to make us take advantage of education where our ancestors were not allowed to learn?
Exactly.
You know, where we were held in bondage. You know, that stuff happened a long time ago, but sometimes I feel in our mind we limit ourselves with the possibilities. You two young men came here and you said, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor. And you just vamped on it. No questions asked.
Yeah.
What can motivate our young people here to do better?
I would say in my case, the Nigerian culture is, although I was born here, I travel back and forth extensively. And I would say one thing that I guess I'm fortunate to have is that in our culture, we pride ourselves on education.
Okay.
So it's very common for, for Nigerians to pursue the highest levels of education, whether it's in medicine, law, or engineering and things like that. So just being in that environment, you sort of set your goals at a certain level. So I think partly in the inner cities and certain urban areas, some of that is missing. Where if it's harder to envision yourself in a position if you don't have family members or friends in that position. You know, so that's one thing. I would say that people that are in a position such as ourselves, just by being around, just by showing, the younger generation, not only is it possible, we're doing it. You know, I think that's something that there needs to be more reaching back. You know, just because it's not enough to make it and leave the community or things like that, you have to kind of reach back and still be around and show people, hey, I'm not that different from you. That way you can kind of motivate the next generation.
I agree 100%. And I think one of the biggest things that's missing in these areas is the support and, like Obi said, just the example. People in the area who have accomplished a certain thing, you know? If I hadn't seen relatives around me, my parents who would accomplish great things, chances are I wouldn't be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, you are very capable of doing this as well. So that's one big part of it. Another big part of it is just kind of there's many factors, but having, like, minimizing the problems in your area, minimizing issues of crime, issues of feeling that you don't know where your next meal might come from, and we don't have the solution for that, but the best thing we can do right now is to have this conversation, to, like Obi said, reach back and help out. But it's good to talk about what are the issues there are as well. It's easy for us to go and study because we know we have food in the fridge, but somebody in the inner city might not have the next meal. So it's multifactorial, but the easiest thing for us to do right now to help out is to lead by example, as well as to have this conversation, to show that it is possible to have two black men, excelling in education. So
I would like to add one more point. I think there's a sense of community. If various communities took a sense of responsibility and they police themselves, not only in terms of physically, but also just if they felt a personal responsibility for their neighbor. That's one thing in our culture, that there's a sense of community. Like, any neighborhood, the people, what's going on and things like that, where sometimes I see in certain neighborhoods, you don't have that sense of community. You might not know the next person, one house or the other,
Obi, you're so right. I'm 63 years old, and when I grew up, the lady up the street, Miss Thompson, she was my den mother. But if I did something wrong, Miss Thompson knew to call my mother down the street.
Accountability.
The Petit family was around the corner. Mr. Petit would take us all to practice because my father was working. And we had a lot of sense of that, and we didn't have those levels of violence we have now.
Because everyone's accountable.
You're absolutely right. Some of our people, no matter where they live at, they may not even take time to get to know their next door neighbor.
Yeah.
You know, I tried to speak to you a
as
couple
much
times.
as we can.
We catch each other because I know you are busy, but you know, I took the time to reach out to you because you told me what you were into. And I felt that I would take advantage of this chance just to get to know you better.
Yeah.
And then I meet, you know, a great guy like Nelson, a football player, my type of guy. and I wanted to have you guys on the show because regardless if, you know, you were born here, you're from Nigeria, you guys have taken on and taken advantage of opportunity. And that's what I think a lot of people, a lot of African Americans that live here right now are not taking advantage of opportunity. When you know, I used to teach school a long time. I was only a substitute teacher, but I'd be in there, and some of those kids in there, I'll be honest, African American kids, they didn't have no interest in trying to learn.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't all of them because a lot of them did very well. It's the ones that think that they're getting over by not taking advantage, and then as they get older, they see how it's really hurting them.
Yeah.
You know, and. I just had to have you guys on to just talk about what hard work is. Now, another thing, how many languages do you speak?
Fluently?
Fluently.
I'd say 2 fluently.
2 fluently. You?
Fluently 2 as well.
2 as well?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good. Samuel, I told you about my friend Samuel Sapaya. He's from Nigeria.
Oh.
I don't know. He's a police chaplain here. He's a minister at a church, and he just got a big title to be in charge of a big church organization that he's in. He represents his church.
Oh, wow.
He also, I was telling Nelson, he also started 2 mobile labs, where on that mobile lab you got computers, he's got speakers, a stereo system set up where kids come in and learn how to play keyboards so they can play their music and tape themselves and see how they sound. Then they can go in the other part of that and, you know, do their work on computers and look up things. Now the police donated that to them.
Really?
You know,
Awesome.
and you know, that's a part of what, you know, we got to understand that a community is everybody.
Everybody.
You know, and that's why I think you guys are talking about, you know that your own community and you're taking advantage of it. And we need to understand that our community is all of us. We got to work together and help one another
Definitely.
to create a better place.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And just like in my little time in medical school, it seems like there's a lot of, as you mentioned, there's a lot of resources available. It just requires a person to have initiative to go out and seek them. But and you know, in my little experience, you know, there's a lot of lack of minority representation in a lot of these, you know, medical schools, a lot of these law schools, upper education in general, whether it's graduate school, you know, graduate nursing, all these things. So there's a lot of opportunity. It's just it requires somebody to kind of, you know, get there and take advantage of them. You know.
And also, even for those who do make it to higher education, you look around your classrooms, you don't see people like you. You don't, you know, you might have to seek out mentors, and it might be difficult too.
Yeah.
So that's why it's doubly important for us to kind of, you know, be where we are. And we did, I'm sure, Obi, you had mentors as well, but I went to WashU in St. Louis in undergrad, and I was able to have mentors who helped me out. And even though my average classroom might not have had people like me, but I had that community in the sense of mentors who were able to show me the way.
Now, how often do you see your parents, both of you guys? I mean,
My parents passed away 7 years ago, both of them. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But I see my family. I have family in the south suburbs, Chicago, not too far from where Nelson is, so I kind of see them often. And I have sisters in Texas, so we talk every day. Yeah.
How many brothers and sisters?
3 sisters.
3 sisters. You're the only guy?
Only guy.
Only guy.
One and only.
What
One and only.
about you, Nelson?
So I see my parents probably not as often as I should. I blame school, but probably a couple times a month.
A couple times a month.
Yeah, and I have. I'm sorry, go ahead.
How you like Rockford? I mean, when somebody told you you're going to medical school over in Rockford, Illinois, and they just say, "Where is that?"
Have to Google.
You know, Rockford's not that far from Chicago. It's about an hour and change.
Yeah.
So
You get home a lot.
I try to. Actually, my girlfriend, she's a nurse and local. So I've been coming here before.
She's a nurse in Rockford?
At Swedish
At
American.
Swedish?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So I've been coming here before I started med school here.
Yeah. I saw her going in the house the other day. I said, please get Obi to come on my show.
She told me. I appreciate that, actually.
Well, really, I was glad. You know, when you called me and then you had Nelson on the phone, I said, this, you know, I always try to find young African Americans mostly that could motivate not just African Americans, motivate young people in general. That if you want something out of life, you got to go get it. And it's not just going to be laid out for you.
Exactly.
It's work that goes in almost everything that's worthwhile.
Exactly.
And I was going to bring this story up. There's an organization here called RAM. And Rockford Area Minority Management, I think it is. And every year they give out scholarships to young African Americans that go to the high schools in Rockford and some of the private schools. Because these kids are scholars, they're doing real good.
Nice.
But a guy came in one year, his last name was Johnson, I think it is. And he talked about he was going to go to school to be a doctor. And I thought about this story when I met you guys. And his parents gave him all the money to be a doctor. So once he got to school, he said, I don't want to be no doctor. That takes too long. It takes 10 years to be a doctor. So he withdrew all the money out from his parents, spent it all, and he was like homeless. And he was in Atlanta, and he was sitting on the park bench after he squandered all the money. And he was talking to a homeless guy, a veteran. And he was telling this veteran, he says, you know, I want to be a doctor, but it takes 10 years to be a doctor. And the homeless veteran looked at him and says, well, 10 years is going to go by anyway.
Exactly.
And he looked at him, he said, what do you mean? He said, 10 years is going to go by anyway. What are you doing in that time span? Yeah. I mean, whether you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be a homeless person, that 10 years is going to go by anyway.
Exactly.
And it just clicked to him that this time is going to go by anyway. What are you doing? And I use that analogy with the guys that I mentor to. All the guys I mentor to are criminals. They've all committed crimes. And I'm trying to get them to see that you can't change that crime, but you can change your life. What are you going to do in the next 10 years? And I use that, and I look at you guys when, you know, that time, it's some time. You guys are absorbing. Did you ever think about saying this takes too long?
Yeah, I guess I've thought about it personally because I'm a bit older than Nelson, but my philosophy is that, you know, medical school is really 4 years, as we described earlier. It's 4 years, and then after that, you're just working.
Just working.
You're in the hospital, you're in your residency, but it's just a job. And if you treat it like just a job, then it's really just 4 years. And 4 years is the same, the 4 years we're doing now is the same as undergrad. To get a bachelor's degree, it's 4 years. Yeah. It might seem like a lot of time, but it keeps you busy. It keeps you busy, the time will fly.
Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket, and the reality of it is, you know, if you find a way to get some joy out of medical school, yeah, it is tough work. Yeah, it might be miserable at times, but if you seek the joy in learning, you know, find out ways that you can actually do what you love in terms of talking to people in the hospitals, you know, messing with the little cells and science and stuff like that. If you seek the enjoyment in that, then it's not nearly as difficult as it sounds. It's 10 years of hard work, but you can get joy out of those 10 years and then truly enjoy your career after that. You know, these 10 years it's an investment in your future. Like I said, it's only a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of things. So.
Well, you know, I tell you, I went to Auburn High School here, and, you know, I thought I was such a great football player. I ain't got nothing to worry about. You probably were. Just a matter of time before I go to the pros. And
Make the
so
money, yeah.
I never did work. I never studied. Teachers would sign my eligibility card, and I thought, man, ain't this great? They're signing this card so I can play, and I didn't even do my work that week. And I went to school almost like that. And got to college, my first semester, I had a football scholarship. But before I got to the school I went to, University of Illinois was offering me a football scholarship. And that coach took one look at my grades, and he said, you can't even think about coming to school here. I was terrible. But the reason I bring it up, I remember when I was in college, I met my first wife. I got to give her credit for that. I used to think she was smart because she got good grades. She said, it just ain't automatic up here. I have to study. I have to work. I have to put some effort into this. She said, as long as you don't do that, you ain't learning nothing. And then I joined the fraternity shortly after that, and I started taking advantage of studying. And I'm telling you, the God's honest truth. It's one of the best feelings, and I still get joy in taking the kinesiology test, or zoology test, and not trying to copy off anybody's paper, where I knew the answers. And so I know firsthand that some of these young people out here, they think they dumb. They ain't dumb.
Yeah.
They are not
100%.
applying themselves.
Exactly.
And I know you two brothers are applying yourself, and you're gonna accomplish your goals because you're putting the effort into it.
Yeah.
100%. And to kind of piggyback off of that, you know, in high school, I played football as well as in college, right?
Uh-huh.
High school, I was, you know, I did pretty well. In college, I had a difficult time academically because I did play football. I had my time was spread out, spread thin, but I had a difficult time believing in myself in college because just imagine the cream of the crop, all the cream of the crops from high schools across the nation going to college, and it's concentrated.
Yeah.
And I settled down into below average academically, and I just realized I had to think to myself, like, what's going on, you know? And I realized eventually that I just wasn't putting the time in, like you said.
Right.
I wasn't putting the time in, and unfortunately, it really got to my head all throughout 4 years, and I kind of felt like I was just intrinsically not as smart as everyone else. But I pray, you know, I thank God that I went through those 4 years because it taught me that, you know what, that hard work, you can't substitute the hard work. Everyone is equally capable. Anybody in this, you know, anybody watching, they are equally capable of being anything they want to be.
Right.
It's just as long as they put in the work and be real with yourself.
Right.
You know, if you studied something but you didn't understand it, be real with yourself and say, hey, I need to find some way to understand it.
That's
And
exactly
time,
it.
exactly.
I think
Time, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
No, I think it's easy to be discouraged along this route. It seems like the system is almost designed to discourage you, and those without good support systems, when they get discouraged, they run
get
away.
discouraged.
The first sign of adversity, they run away.
Yeah.
But the reality is, college and even medical school that we're in, it's not about who's the smartest in class.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, you'll realize really soon that the smartest people don't get the best grades. It's the work ethic.
Yes,
You know, if you have the right work ethic, you know, you can apply to anything. You know, whether it's sports, a lot of athletes, you know, when they retire, they go into education because they just apply that same work ethic and they're able to be successful. So it's really about how hard you work. So it's not the person that can just pick up a book for 5 minutes and know the answers.
everything.
It's about the person that picks up the book for 7 days straight for 20 minutes a day. The consistency to really develop those muscles.
Absolutely.
Man, I tell you, I am blown away, totally impressed. And, you know, I want to end with this right here. I've been doing this show a long time, but 27 and a half years ago, when I started this show, I had a guy named Louis Jordan on. He was my first guest. And he turned out to be Mayor Daley's CHA director, Chicago Housing.
Yeah.
But he did his first show with me.
Wow.
And he told me something way back then. And he took the word keys. He spelled the word keys out. And he said, K, knowledge enhances your success. And I never, ever forgot that. I wish I had knew something like that when I was in high school. But, you know, I passed that along to my guys. And you guys are a prime example that your knowledge is enhancing your success. And I want to thank both of you guys. And we're going to watch the progress. You're going to be up here for 3 years studying? Or you
Yes,
gotta,
sir. Yeah.
Well, we're going to get you back on, show the progress.
I'd be happy to be back.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
We thank you, Mr. Meeks, for letting
All right.
us
Thank you very
much.
share the knowledge.
That's
No problem.
great.
Thank you.
Man, what a great football player right there. Swimmer right here. Athletes made. Hey, if you want to be successful, you got to do the work. There's no other way around it. And as usual, I'll see you next time.
All of us have our ups and downs. You better think about it or you won't be around. What we need is a little bit of love. Sent by one from heaven up above. Chicken from tea is simple and plain. This ain't no game, you know what I'm saying? What? Yep.